Grab you a snack and sit on down, y'all. It's time for another Game James game review. Celeste. Super fun game about overcoming obstacles, overcoming fears, and dealing with a little thing we call anxiety. So that seems to be the theme of this game. That's what a lot of people say it's about and what the game seems to suggest it's about. So before I get into the game, I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience personally with anxiety. So the first time I had a actual panic attack similar to what Madeline went through in this game, I was somewhere around 10 years old. I wasn't even sure what it was at the time, but I couldn't focus on what people were saying to me, couldn't focus on what I was supposed to do next. I was just kind of stuck. You know, it was like time stopped and I was like, okay, what am I supposed to do? I wasn't sure. So for me, maybe it's a little different for you, but for me, anxiety is not just fear of something scary, something you gotta do, or something you're not sure about, something you're afraid might happen. It's also just the fear of the fear itself, just the unpleasantness of being afraid. And you wonder, is this ever going to go away? I, in fact, even had to see a psychiatrist not too long ago about getting that feeling to go away and, restoring my natural mental state and getting myself to calm the heck down. Because I've been dealing with a lot of things that are scary. I am still hanging in there and feeling a lot more positive than I used to, and I've overcome a lot of fears. Starting a YouTube channel like this one I got right here that you're watching now, it was not easy for me, but it's required some breakthroughs, and I managed to do that. So that's another thing this game is about, is breaking through and overcoming that anxiety. Here's the thing about it, a lot of this game I feel like is open to interpretation, like a lot of games, and I haven't seen it all, so maybe there is some more explanation in it that I didn't see yet. So don't tell me yet if you know what it's about. I'm going to share with you specifically what I got from this game. Maybe you saw some different things in there, but like I said, it talks about anxiety, but it's not just about overcoming anxiety, it's also about the good side of it. And what it is specifically, because Madeline and I kind of had the wrong idea about what Shadowlin, who I believe represents her anxiety and her fear, is supposed to be. So to begin with, I feel like the first message the game was trying to share with us is that anxiety is nothing to be ashamed of. It doesn't make you any worse than anybody else. It doesn't make you a wimp if you're afraid to do things. Even the bravest people still struggle with fear. So, and it wasn't until Madeline, she said multiple times she hated that side of herself, and she was ashamed. She was not proud of that side of herself. But it wasn't until that side of her took on a physical form, a physical human shape, that she realized it's not all that bad, and it somehow has feelings too. What I noticed was, with Shadowlin, as I call her, still don't know what her canon name is, if she even has one, but when she finally got to being honest and talking about what her motivations are, why she's so afraid, she looked to me like an abandoned child of Madeline's, a part of her that she had just kind of left behind, and like she said herself, kept trying to leave behind since as long as she could remember. So she felt lonely, and she felt rejected. Also, speaking of which, I remember we still don't know, one thing maybe we find out later, but we still don't know who it was she was talking to on the phone. It could have been her father, so I'm willing to bet, this is my best guess anyway, maybe she herself felt abandoned by her father or brother or whoever that was, and then, in a similar way, that part of herself felt abandoned by her. Because she is her, technically, so it would make sense that she shares those feelings. So second, something the old lady said that seems to be another big theme in the story, the first step of healing is confronting the problem. And that could also be the hardest step, I would say. You want to get a job, you gotta actually go and apply. You want to sell something, you gotta actually get out of your car and go up to their door. So the first step is always the hardest one, but it is a necessary one, because you're not gonna make any progress if you don't take that first step, and you're not gonna heal if you don't know where the problem is and look it in the eye, or eyes as the case may be. So on that note, it's pretty cool and weird at the same time how Madeline and Theo both were kind of forced to get introspective. They went into a temple that somehow was able to show them what their insides, their mind looks like, and what is the result of the thoughts and, I guess, the ideals they had come up with. And also, one thing that was never really explained was when Theo was stuck in this crystal. He said it was created from his negative energy, and he had a bunch of eyes staring at him. I had to wonder, because he said the temple was reflecting his mind too. So that makes me wonder, could that have anything to do with his Instapics account, his social media, where he, kind of like what I'm doing here, so I can kind of relate to him there, putting himself out on the internet, and anybody who wants to, not literally everyone, but anybody who wants to can see him, can see what he's doing, what he's saying. There's some pressure that comes with that. You know, you don't know what people are going to think, and especially if you've got a lot of followers. He said he was trying to reach 1,000 followers. We didn't know how many he had, but, you know, if you get to building up a fan base, and people start liking you, that's when the pressure really starts building up, and you're like, oh gosh, what if I say something that disappoints them? What if I make them leave? What if I lose them? I've dealt with that. I've dealt with that myself, so I can understand that, and, you know, maybe that is what it's about, maybe not, but that's my best interpretation of that, and I think that's pretty cool. Also, it wasn't until we defeated that giant eye at the end, by throwing Theo at it, that he finally broke free of that shield. So that made me wonder, could that be just him finally facing the attention, the eye looking at him, was what finally got him to break out of that, finally come to face that fear, quite literally. So, you know, again, taking the first step, and putting yourself out there, realizing the risks and, you know, what you're going to face, and then moving on from there, because you can't move on until, again, you take that first step. So if that's what it means, it's pretty cool. That's just my guess, but that is a very beautiful, if kind of creepy, metaphor for that. Third, just speaking more generally, a lot of the game was about just courage. Courage to face the task ahead of you, and talking about how you have what it takes. Because right at the beginning, the first line that Madeline says to herself is, "You can do this." And she had to go through a lot to prove that to herself, because she obviously didn't quite believe it. There was a literal part of her that didn't believe that, she believed the exact opposite. But the beautiful thing about it is, going back to that plot twist that I loved so much, there was a secret power inside of her, and it happened to be that very thing that was discouraging her, and that is just so amazing. So it's kind of sort of like that cliche, everybody's got a power inside of them, everybody's got courage in them, they might not even know it, or might have it and not know what it is or where it is, they just gotta discover that, and she did, and she discovered it in what I thought was one of the most unlikely places, but I'll get to that later. Also, that moment where she leveled up, thanks to her former enemy turned ally, and she gained a new ability. When I saw that, I couldn't help but think of a moment in Earthbound, some semi-spoilers in here, not really though. So there's this part where he's in this world that's created by his mind, and there's a huge boss battle that he fights on his own, and it's not until after that, as soon as you beat that boss, he levels up like 10 times, and you usually only level up one time, and not very often. So for me, what that was representative of was him growing up, basically, you know, and getting past that tough moment in his life, whatever it was, whatever it's supposed to represent. It was like the evil part of his mind. Don't know exactly what that means, but it was very beautiful, I think, and he's so much the better for it afterward. So that was beautiful in that game and in this one. And finally, like I mentioned before, the good side of fear. How many of you seen Inside Out by show of hands? Beautiful movie. You gotta see it if you haven't. But if you haven't seen it, that's alright. I'll just explain it real quick. It's about a little girl named Riley Anderson who's going through the tough process called growing up, and so many changes happen, and her emotions are personified. They're actual people that we get to see inside of her mind. So there's joy, sadness, anger, disgust, and of course, fear. So I like to imagine, because I had no idea, I thought I knew what Shadowman was supposed to be in terms of what part of Madeline she was, and even she wasn't sure. So what I gathered, and again, it could be a bunch of different things, but she, like she said, is Madeline's pragmatic side, and also represents her fears of doing things that are irrational, that could be dangerous, like climbing a mountain, and doing things outside her safety zone, I guess you could say. So as I got to know Shadowlin and was trying to figure out who and what she was, I started to think she's a lot like Fear. Just being pragmatic and keeping Madeline safe. That's what she said her job was, just trying to keep her safe. But unlike the Fear in Inside Out, who's just a timid guy and trying to do things the right way or not, no way at all, she's a very aggressive type. And that's essentially what anxiety is fear ramped up. And so that's why she thinks she's helping, but really she's causing way more problems for Madeline than good. And that's why Madeline hates her so much. So there is, there's fault on both their sides, like she said. So this reminded me of something that the evangelist Joyce Meyer once said, and she might have gotten it from somebody else, I don't know, but she used fear as an anagram, and what she said was, fear is false evidence appearing real. And that's very true a lot of the time. And that is precisely what I thought Shadowlin was. This is what I love so much about Shadowlin and what the game does with her, because it sets her up to look like a villain that's got to be defeated in some way, got to be banished from Madeline's mind, got to be dealt with, maybe beaten up even, I don't know, because she was very aggressive and she acted very much like a villain. In fact, I gotta be honest, a lot of the things she said to Madeline sounded to me like the voice of Satan, telling her, you are not prepared for this. You might as well just go home because this is pointless. You're just doing this to feel good about yourself, and it's not a worthy endeavor. So just forget it. But as it turned out, she is not really all that evil. She even looks, I still have to wonder why she looks so evil and has all those creepy abilities. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, maybe that's some other kind of beauty somewhere, but, like a goth, Madeline, like Theo said. But she's actually not all that bad. We got to know her. And that's like with a lot of actual people. So what she was, again, was an aggressive fear. A fear that was angry toward Madeline for just being ignored and being abandoned by her, because as unpleasant as fear and anxiety can be, they do, like I said already, have their positive sides. So now what I kept wondering was, how exactly is fear working for Madeline? How is it on her side and helping her climb the mountain? So I got to thinking about that. I was starting to think, is this even making sense anymore? So then I got to thinking about how fear can actually inspire the courage to do heroic things that heroic people do. So who knows, maybe somewhere down the line, Madeline will become a firefighter who has the courage to rescue people from a raging inferno, or a doctor who's not afraid to help people who are like seconds away from dying. And if she ever becomes a mother, and someone has the audacity to attack or just be mean to one of her children, I would not envy them, let's just put it that way. So anyway, on to the review, because this game was beautiful both in its life lessons, in the intangible parts, and in the things that I saw and heard. And of course, going to talk about the feelings too. So to begin with, beautiful graphics and animations. I absolutely loved every bit about both 2D retro and 3D models. Even if they weren't very crisp and clean, they were just as beautiful. And the lighting and the colors really set the mood for whatever part of, not only whatever part of the mountain we were on, but the part of the story we were in. Like the brightness of the jungle where the healing began, the coldness and darkness of the Mirror Temple. The appearance fits the setting. So that was very beautifully done, and the animations again were very charming. Second of all, cutscenes were very enjoyable and absolutely hilarious, some of them. One of my favorite moments was when Theo and Madeline were in that cable car, and right when it's jolted is when he took the selfie. Just that look of sudden surprise was unforgettable. I hope they don't delete that one. And believe it or not, I got nothing bad to say about the sights. They were very gorgeous. So then there's the sounds, and I absolutely loved the music because it was beautiful and very memorable, especially just the opening, the menu music was... I love the key of A anyway, but it was just so soothing and so setting you up for a grand adventure. Absolutely wonderful. Not only was a lot of it beautiful, it was also very dynamic. Now, I've played games where the song that you're listening to, it changes, the part of the song changes depending on what part of the level you're in, and that's so cool. An example of that being Super Mario 3D World for the Wii U. Depending on where you go, the parts of the song that you're in changes. That's so cool. So this game did some of that, but it also had dynamic music. What I mean by that is, it changed gradually as you went forward, like certain parts where the music slowly faded away, and also just sudden changes when you went to a new scene. So again, did a great job of setting the mood for the place you were and the situation that was going on, like when the wind was suddenly blowing or when there was danger involved, That was beautiful. I really wish I knew how to make music like that and, all the programming that went into that, but all I can say is, beautifully done with that. By that same token, the sound effects were just as enjoyable because they were atmospheric, especially if you're wearing headphones. It's a lot of fun to hear, like when Mr. Oshiro got angry, he's swiping across the screen, you hear him go, ah! It's a creepy sound, but it is pretty cool hearing sounds going, depending on where they are going, traveling, as the thing making them travels. Those swamp things, very entertaining and very added a lot to the experience, I believe. But as beautiful as the music was, there was some of it, namely, where the Mirror Temple, that was a little bit over the top creepy. And I understand, it's supposed to represent the anxiety inside of Madeline and the insecurity she feels as everything's out of whack inside of her, or at least a lot of it is. But a lot of it was just ear torture for me, and I'm sure a lot of you felt the same way, because it's not just the creepy melodies, but the frequency of the instruments going, it sticks with you long after you've heard it, and I could have done without that. That was... So anyway, on to the feelings. Some very relatable characters. And I know I already talked about the characters, but they struggle with a lot of the same things, both Madeline and Theo, and even his sister, that I have been through, and I was able to just put myself in their shoes and think, how did you know me so well? Because I have, like I mentioned, I've struggled with anxiety myself, I've struggled with some depression, and I've struggled with anger issues. Just like Madeline said, she thinks about things that happened a long time ago that made her angry that don't even matter. Like she said, dumb crap that doesn't even matter now, and that's something I deal with pretty much every day, to be honest. I think about things that happened a long time ago that made me mad. It's like that anger in my head, that personified anger, like the short guy with the fire coming out of him, is constantly telling me that was unfair, what happened, that was unfair, that was unfair, that was unfair, and I have to keep telling him, I know that was unfair, but it happened in the past. This is the present. Get a grip! Sorry, you had to see that yell. So anyway, I deal with emotions just like everybody, and sometimes amplified emotions that don't even make sense, like I don't need to think about that anymore. So, you know, I connected to Madeline very much that way. I mean, I don't drink, I certainly don't intentionally say mean things on the internet like she did. That I still think that's very poor way to handle your emotions, but I can definitely relate to that, relate to things that made you mad and things that just makes you afraid and sad. Also, Theo, he had some problems that I could definitely relate to, having dead-end jobs. I've been through some of that, and he just said he wanted to explore Celeste Mountain so he could say that he did something. So he could say something, he accomplished something in his life. Again, I share that same want to make something in my life and, you know, to do something with the time that I have, because I know it's not going to last forever. So, you know, I have all kinds of hobbies that I work on really hard, even though they're not earning me money. I like to draw pictures, like to play the piano, like to play video games. Yeah, that you probably knew about that one. Also, even Mr. Oshiro, I hopefully would not be as rude and, you know, irritable as he was, but I know that feeling like I'm doing my best to do this and you know, get this organized, get it looking good, and then somebody comes and says, this place is a dump. So, very relatable character, and I'm sure it's not just me, because depression and anxiety are becoming, from what I understand, becoming a lot more prevalent in American society and just around the world. Everybody deals with it to some degree, and today even more. So, very good job of connecting these characters to the real world that way, making them deal with real-world problems, but not overdoing it, I think. Secondly, there's a good build-up of anticipation, not to be confused with anxiety, because that is usually more of a problem, but anticipation of what's going to happen next, because Madeline states at the very beginning, her goal for the entire game is to climb the mountain, and when you climb the mountain, that's the end of the game, but she keeps making more progress, and then she falls down, so it keeps making you wonder, is she going to make it to the top, or is she going to do something different and decide that goal wasn't a good one to begin with, or, you know, what's going to happen? So, they built that up very well through the levels, especially at the end. Oh boy, because I had no idea how much more we had to go, and I kept telling myself, when's it going to be over, when's it going to be, how much more of this? And then we ran into those numbered signs when we finally got to the summit, or the part going up to the summit, those numbered signs telling you how much more distance you have to cover, not exactly how much, but letting you know it's a good indicator of you're this close, now you're this close, now you're this close, and it's just the game goading you on, saying, keep going, just a little longer, just this much more, just this much more, just this much more, just this much more. And then here's the really weird but surprisingly interesting thing that happened. When we finally got past the number 1 sign and got up to the summit, the music started fading away, and, you know, I wasn't sure what to expect. I was thinking maybe there'd be another boss fight, or something else would try to keep Madeline from reaching the summit, maybe Shadowlyn would change her mind or something, but nope, we made it, and then was it. But so my first thought was, okay, we made it, now what? Like Shadowlyn said, now what? What do we do? But that made me think about, what is it like when you actually get to a goal in real life that you didn't think you'd get to? That's, you're finally there, this is what you've been wanting to do for a long time, now you've made it, so the anticipation is gone. And, you know, you probably do what Madeline did, just enjoy it, just enjoy the view. And enjoy being where you said you were going to be. Accomplishing something you said you were going to do. That's another thing about this game. Integrity toward yourself. Accomplishing things you said you were going to do. So it's a good feeling, but then, you know, what do we do now? My answer to that is just keep going. You can't go higher than the top of a mountain, but, you know, where are you going to go next? That's the beauty of it. We don't see what Madeline does next, but we're free to imagine it. And I absolutely love that. So very good build-up of anticipation. Also, just some good pacing with the mixture of side-scrolling and every now and then you have cutscenes in the level, and also some dialogue, and there's that one part where you got to choose what Theo and Madeline talked about. That's like totally different from what we've been doing, just get through the obstacles. Now we're just talking about, we're just taking a rest and talking about, what's going on here, and where are we going to go, what are we going to do from here. So, it's pretty cool, I think. A good, I bet it's not easy to make games that incorporate dialogue into side-scrolling. Maybe not too hard, but still a challenge. A challenge to figure out where do we insert this dialogue in the game, and what happens here, and how can we build it up so we don't, we don't have them keep talking and bore the player, and keep it exciting enough so that they'll keep going. So they did that beautifully, I think. I was enticed the whole way through to keep going, whether it was by what's going to happen next or when is this going to be over. Either way, I was very eager to see what would happen next. So very good storytelling, both in the mechanics of the game and the story itself. And finally, this might seem a little weird that I'm praising the game for this, but there was a lot of enjoyable difficulty in there. Because I've played games of very different ranges of difficulty, some that drove me bonkers, some when I was younger and I didn't have as much control over my emotions, made me want to break the game. So I did. But this game, while very difficult, and again, not for the beginning type of player, is an enjoyable type of difficulty, and it fits with the theme of the game, difficult but doable, because climbing a mountain is not easy. Even if you don't have all the spikes and and your shadow self coming after you, and you don't have all those barriers, it's still a very hard thing to do. Because, there's the weather to think about, there's having the right gear, making sure you don't get hurt, and know what to do if you do get hurt. It's scary. I've never done it. I'm not a mountain climber. Maybe someday I will be. Maybe this game has inspired me to climb a mountain. Don't count on that, but it's possible. But, it's the kind of thing that I think with enough patience and enough determination, because that's what you really need no matter how good you are, enough of that, anybody could, theoretically, get through this game. And, it's just the right amount of difficult. Like I said, it's very hard and it's frustrating if you're not careful, but like the old lady said, you can come back when you're ready. And that's what Madeline was tempted to do, but you can also go all the way through if you want to. That's on you, by the way, to take breaks at the right time and not frustrate yourself with it. I do my best not to blame the game for being too hard. I didn't do very well with this game, I know. But, anger is something you gotta deal with. Frustration is something you gotta deal with. The game is hard, and it's supposed to be hard. But it was enjoyable kind of hard, and doable if you take it in moderation. And I probably should have taken the hint you're able to split it into half. You don't have to go through the whole level. You can save at any point in the level. That probably would save me some trouble, but it was worth it. I feel like each level was just long enough and just difficult enough to make one episode per level, not counting the B-sides because those are insane. But again, doable if you keep at it. Also, speaking of, I think this is a great game for YouTubers, because for the people who don't have the hand-eye coordination or just don't feel dedicated enough to get through each level and keep dying and go through all that, you can just watch it. You can watch somebody who knows what they're doing, finish it for you, and see the story that way without having to go through the process of getting through the story. You can just sit back and enjoy it, so I really like that about it too. So taking all that together, the sights, the sounds, the feelings, the aesthetic, the incredible adventure, and the insane experiences that came with it, putting all that on my quality scale, I would say Celeste is beautiful! Very beautiful experience. Glad I bought it, because I thought it would be my type of game, and turns out it was. Now, I was afraid for a little while it was going to be too weird for this channel, like, oh gosh, am I going to be able to share that on a family-friendly channel? But it just barely made it, I think. That's my opinion, though. Maybe you thought otherwise. So now that's out of the way, some things I want to say here. First of all, very sorry I couldn't keep up with my regular upload schedule of Wednesdays and Saturdays. I'm a little less well-equipped for that than I thought I was, because this is not the only project. This YouTube channel is just one of my many projects that I take on. I also draw pictures and practice music and stuff, so I think what I'm going to do next is stick to some shorter games, just so I'll have shorter videos, and I can keep my schedule a little more regular, and not have to delay them like I have. It's tough, y'all, it really is. But I do, of course, have longer games and series that I want to do somewhere down the road. Again, like the game says, I'll do it when I am ready for it, and hopefully that will be soon, but I am planning on switching to the shorter ones for now. We'll see where it goes. But, good Lord willing, I won't be able to keep doing this and have some fun, share that fun with y'all, and we're going to have an awesome time, an awesome climb. So So, who knows? Maybe somewhere down the line, Madeline will become voice. So, who knows? Maybe. So, first of all, beautiful graphics and animations. Those were. Let's try that again. I can't talk. One of my favorites was just that look of sudden excitement. Just. And by that very same token, the sound effects were just as enjoyable because they were. Ow. I know it's supposed to sound anxious, like, because it represents the anxiety inside of Madeline. Gee, I can bring her. Wanted to do something. He said he just wanted to explore Mount Celeste. Dang it! And I think like each level was just long enough to make. Why am I doing that? So thank y'all once again for joining me on this climb and going through it with me. If you did, I don't blame you if you didn't go through all of it, but I had a fun time with that. Fun time talking about it. Hope y'all enjoyed this. Thank y'all so much for watching, and until next time. Adios, amigos. God bless, and I will see you around. Jeez, my head gets all sweaty whenever I wear this.